From Cleopatra's tomb finally found to the first mummy of a pregnant woman. Here are the 15 strangest things recently discovered in Egypt. Number 15. Archaeologists unearth colossal pair of sphinxes. In Egypt, during the restoration of a landmark temple, several fragments of a colossal pair of magnificent limestone sphinxes were unearthed at the temple of Amenhotep II, located west of Luxor. It all happened during the restoration of the funerary temple and the colossi of Memnon, which are two huge sculptures in their likeness. By accident, they stumbled upon two statues half submerged in the water. They soon realized that they were two sphinxes. How big are they? Approximately 6 meters high. They are believed to represent the ancient ruler, with a mongoose-shaped headdress, a royal beard, and a very wide necklace. But that was not all they discovered at the site. They also found not one, not two, but 3 entire statues of the goddess Sekhmet, who was a lion-like guardian of the sun god Ra. Before continuing with this video, hit the subscribe button and the notification bell right now. They also unearthed the remains of a rather large pillared room. In it are several images depicting a royal jubilee, also known as Hebsed, which was an ancient Egyptian festival in which the people renewed and recognized the pharaoh's right to rule. This festival used to be celebrated in the thirstiest year of the king's reign. Ironically, most pharaohs did not get that far, but Amenhotep did. And not only did he live long enough to see his own Hebset, but his jubilee celebrations were the most lavish and extravagant in ancient Egyptian history. Number 14. Boat and cemetery discovered in an underwater city. Recently, a group of archaeologists have found a 2,200-year-old shipwreck at the bottom of the Mediterranean Sea. According to experts, the ancient ship sank after being hit by falling blocks of the Temple of Amun, which was crumbling due to a major earthquake that occurred at that time. The wrecked ship, along with the remains of a funerary area, were found at the site where the ancient city of Heracleion once stood. They also found several artifacts from the ancient city in the Bay of Abu Qir, 40 kilometers from Alexandria. Heracleion Thonis in ancient Egyptian was one of the main ports of the country, located in the Nile Delta, until Alexander the Great founded the city of Alexandria in 331 BC. The city, discovered in 2001, was submerged after a series of earthquakes and high tides struck the area. The flat-bottomed vessel, basically a galley with wide oars, masts, and sails, was 25 meters long and was used for navigation in the Nile Delta. It was submerged for a long time, 7 kilometers off the current Egyptian coast, under 8 meters of water. It was forgotten for centuries. Some searched for it, as it was mentioned in several texts and books. But those who went looking for it were considered crazy. Number 13. 2,500-year-old coffins discovered in Saqqara. Khalid Al-Anani, head of the Egyptian Ministry of Tourism and Antiquities, has announced the discovery of a 2,500-year-old burial pit containing at least 13 ancient burials. The wooden coffins were found stacked on top of each other in a closed pit about 11 meters deep inside the archaeological site of Saqqara. What is really special about this discovery is not only the way the coffins were staked, but the fact that the original colors were found intact. That paint survived thousands of years. Imagine that the colors are still very vivid, as if they had been painted only a few years ago. A few days after the first opening of the burial, 14 more sarcophagi were unearthed. The discovery is now said to be the largest of its kind. Preliminary studies have been conducted on the coffins, indicating that they have not been opened since the day they were buried. Saqqara is a vast necropolis in the Memphis region. It knew an uninterrupted occupation throughout the history of ancient Egypt. Thus, royal tombs and more modest burials rub shoulders there and present numerous testimonies of the daily life of ancient Egypt. From the earliest dynasties, kings and members of the aristocracy had their mustaba built there. The oldest tomb, number 3357, dates from the reign of Horaha, the second ruler of the first dynasty. Number 12. The robot inside the Great Pyramid. The Great Pyramid of Giza is not only the largest and oldest of the 3 pyramids, but also the source of great mysteries and wonders to this day. We do not really know why it was built or for what purpose. In fact, we do not know much about it. For example, we believe it may have been built 4,500 years ago, but we are not 100% sure. In the hope of clarifying some of these questions, a group of scientists has decided to send a robot to investigate an area of the Great Pyramid that has not been accessed before. Inside a room known as the Queen's Chamber, behind a false wall is a narrow shaft that ascends at a 40-degree angle into the interior of the pyramid. For years, archaeologists have been dying to know what might be up there, but they couldn't reach it without damaging the shaft. In 2010, a robotics professor from Leeds decided to get to work. His small wheeled robot, armed with a camera, was able to successfully traverse the narrow shafts. The robot revealed a small hidden chamber with intricate red markings on the walls. It also discovered a second blocking stone that it was unable to break through. Now, what lies beyond that second stone, we may never know. Number 11, 3,400-year-old road restored. Near Luxor, Egyptian authorities have recently inaugurated a renovated 3,400-year-old walkway called the Avenue of Sphinxes in Luxor. This is the latest government project undertaken to highlight the country's archaeological treasures and thereby attract tourism. This ancient walkway, also known as the Way of the Rams or the Path of the Gods, connects the magnificent and famous temples of Karnak and Luxor in what was once the capital of Egypt, called Thebes. According to experts, this impressive walkway was the path taken by pilgrims to visit the temples and pay tribute to their gods. Its various names come from the numerous sphinxes and rams on pedestals that line the entire avenue. Luxor sits on the banks of the Nile River and is located about 650 kilometers from the present capital, Cairo. Luxor has been under excavation for more than half a century, and given that it stretches for several kilometers, is likely to remain under excavation for many more years. Not that they have to excavate an entire city or anything like that. According to a senior Egyptian archaeological official, the oldest ruins on the Avenue of the Sphinxes are 6 structures built by Queen Hatshepsut, dating from 2400 BC. Here, an ancient autumn festival marked by parades and dances was held in celebration of the bounty brought by the annual flooding of the fields by the Niles. Number 10. The Lost Tomb of Cleopatra. Archaeologists have discovered an incredible tunnel whose engineering has impressed experts. 6.5 feet high, the passageway was excavated over a distance of 4,281 miles. They were looking for one treasure and found another. Since 2004, a team of archaeologists has been exploring every corner of Egypt in search of the tomb of Cleopatra VII. For some time, their excavations have focused on the ancient ruins of the city of Taposiris Magna, northwest of Cairo. Their investigations led them to an architectural feat, a tunnel that they described as a geometric miracle. Beneath one of the ancient city's temples, Kathleen Martinez, of the University of Santo Domingo in the Dominican Republic, and her teammates discovered a structure 42 and 6 feet deep. For now, the purpose of the Taposiris Magna tunnel remains unknown. On the other hand, it could be a serious clue to finding Cleopatra's sarcophagus. According to Kathleen Martinez and her team, their excavations have yielded clues that seem to point in this direction. For some years now, several experts believe that the ancient queen of Egypt, the last of the Ptolemies, rests in the city of Taposiris Magna, founded around 280 BC by Ptolemy II. The temple, currently in the hands of archaeologists, was dedicated, according to them, to the god Osiris and the goddess Isis, to whom Cleopatra worshipped. Number 9. Mysterious underwater opening discovered in Egypt. A group of archaeologists were absolutely baffled after investigating a 6-meter deep well completely filled with water, and subsequently discovering a mysterious underwater opening that led to what they say is the most important and largest archaeological discovery in more than a century. The historic event took place at Jebel el Silsila, also known as the mountain chain, which is located 40 miles north of the Upper Egyptian city of Aswan. Egyptian authorities confirmed that they had discovered in Luxor a treasure trove of 30 ancient wooden coffins with several intact mummies still inside. An impressive fact, considering that these coffins have spent a long time underwater. During the 18th dynasty, this area was known as an important quarrying site on both sides of the Nile, and it is believed that many of the workers were buried there. These people turned Egypt into one of the greatest civilizations in human history, and this is their eternal rest. And some of them are the ones that have just been discovered underwater. Despite being buried in a desert, the ancient Egyptians went to a lot of trouble to plan and build this burial chamber to make it inaccessible to looters. Number 8. The two baby mummies from King Tut's tomb. When the tomb of Common Tut was discovered in 1922, they found the mummies of two babies that until now, researchers did not know who they were or why they were there. Apparently, the babies could have been twins. Despite their large size difference, genetic analysis of the babies has shown that both were born, one at 25 weeks gestation and the other at 37 weeks. Given that they were most likely born to the great royal wife Ankhesenamun, who was the young king's half-sister, it should come as no surprise that these babies had many medical problems. In fact, King Tut himself had many serious health problems, for his parents were also siblings. He had a cleft palate, clubfoot, and a genetic bone disease. At the time of his reign, the royal line was considered a manifestation of God on earth. That meant they could do pretty much whatever they wanted, and marrying his sister was one of those things. But that freedom did not come without consequences. Through DNA testing, it was discovered that the babies were both female and also had several severe deformities. The girls' mummies were probably buried with their father as a form of insurance to ensure that he could pass all tests and attain eternal life. Number 7. Senet, the ancient Egyptian game of death. As it seems, the ancient Egyptians were very fond of board games. They had many and spent hours sitting around playing with their acquaintances. But there is one game that stands out above the rest. In their fondness for rituals and their obsession with death, they were able to transform the simplest game into a key component in crossing the threshold to the afterlife. A sort of initiatory path that turns the passage to the underworld into an entertaining game. They called it Senet. Senet was the most popular game of all. However, the name already gives us a first clue. Senado means to pass or to be guided. The game is quite simple. It consists of having to go through its 30 squares, avoiding any setbacks or difficulties that may arise. It was during the New Kingdom, approximately around 1400 BC, when Senet acquired the ritual and initiatory meaning that characterized it for the rest of its history. Throughout this period, this board game became more of a mortuary artifact than anything else, acquiring the symbolism of the path that the deceased had to travel on their way to the afterlife. Creepy. Would you be brave enough to play it? Number 6. Coffins and bronze statues 2,500 years old. This time, the discovery included 159 bronze statues, all of them of ancient Egyptian deities such as Isis and Osiris, and several 2,500-year-old wooden coffins. This ancient burial site, located about 19 kilometers south of Cairo, has not yet ceased to amaze us. According to Mustafa el-Waziri, head of the Egyptian Supreme Council of Antiquities, it is the largest bronze chest found so far in the Bubastan Cemetery, named after the ancient goddess Bastet, who was often depicted as a woman with a cat's head. Isis was one of the most important goddesses of ancient Egyptian civilization. Multiple roles and attributes were attributed to her, making her a highly revered figure. On the one hand, she was considered the goddess of the home and domesticity, representing the warmth of the sun that provided life and well-being to homes. In addition, she was associated with motherhood and women's secrets, being the protector of pregnant women and children. But that was not all. Isis was also recognized for her connection with cats, who were considered sacred in Egyptian culture. Her statue was revered and her tomb was expected to be found soon, which would be a find of great historical importance. In addition, her divine genealogy was also remarkable. She was the daughter of the sun god Ra, which related her to the concept of the Eye of Ra, the all-seeing eye symbolizing omniscience. Her name was originally Beast, which became Ubast, then Bast, then Bastet. The meaning of this name is not known, or at least not universally agreed upon. Number 5. The Mummy of Queen Nefertiti. Nefertiti, her spellbinding name still resonates. Today, the royal wife of Pharaoh Akhenaten, and mother of King Tut, stands next to Cleopatra, one of the most famous queens of ancient Egypt. Many theories have been made about the location of her tomb and mummy, but none have been confirmed yet. Or have they? The famous Egyptologist Zahi Hawass announced that he has found the mummy of Nefertiti. According to him, the queen's mummy was actually discovered in 1817. That year, the explorer and Egyptologist Giovanni Battista Belzoni discovered a tomb called KV-21 in the Valley of the Kings. He discovers two mummies but fails to identify them. Today, they remain unknown, but Zahi Hawass is confident. Thanks to modern technologies, he believes he will soon be able to reveal the identity of the two mummies, namely Nefertiti and her daughter Enki-Sonamun. In a nearby tomb, KV-35, the mummy of a 10-year-old boy was also found. If this child is the brother of Tutankhamun and son of Akhenaten, the problem posed by Nefertiti will be solved. Her name has gone down in history and continues to captivate today, famous for her natural beauty and her painted bust. Dating back to the 14th century, the great queen of Egypt was a very influential woman. Together with her royal husband Akhenaten, she wielded considerable power over Egypt. Number 4, 30 mummies, including a mother with her baby in her arms, in a 2,000-year-old Egyptian tomb. Egypt's Ministry of Antiquities has announced a major discovery made in the southeast of the country. They have unearthed 30 mummies, all dated to be at least 2,000 years old. The mummies include infants, children, and adults, and all were found in an intricate network of subway burial chambers. They also found a room full of objects related to ancient burial practices. It is hoped that this new find will teach us much about the ancient Egyptian empire during a crucial period of historical change. Among the most intriguing of the preserved bodies was that of a mummified mother and child. The pair were extracted still covered in painted cartonnage, which is a type of mummy covering made up of pieces of linen or papyrus glued together. They also found a well-preserved statuette of a ba bird, which represents the soul of a deceased person and was believed to fly out of the tomb to join the afterlife. The site is located in Aswan, once an important outpost on the Nubian border. It was then called Swanet. At this site, there are several dozen burials, all from very different historical periods. In the last 4 years alone, archaeologists have mapped some 300 tombs. So far, they have only excavated 25, so stay tuned for more information to come. Number 3. Ancient Egyptian tombs filled with snacks. The ancient Egyptians held a fascinating belief. They considered death to be a continuation of life, and therefore shared many of the same needs and desires. This is reflected in the way they prepared the tombs of royalty, such as that of the famous pharaoh Tutankhamun. In these tombs, one could find a large amount of preserved foods, such as meats, poultry, and seedless dates, specially selected for the young king's enjoyment in his afterlife. The Egyptians made sure to pack enough snacks and food as if they were preparing a mega feast, so that their ruler could fully enjoy his new kingdom in the afterlife. King Tut, also known as Tutankhamun, lived approximately between the years 1342 and 1325 BCE. During the discovery of his tomb in 1922, archaeologists found an impressive number of objects, a total of 5,398 to be exact. These objects included thrones, bows, trumpets, a lotus chalice, as well as a variety of food, wine, and beer. In addition, sandals and undergarments made of fresh linen were found. Surprisingly, a folding camp bed was also found, indicating that King Tutankhamun enjoyed desert escapades and wanted to be prepared to spend the night comfortably on his expeditions. Basically, the ancient Egyptians were obsessed with life. They knew that death was inevitable, so they wanted to have a better afterlife. Their tombs were careful preparations for eternity. Number 2. Shabti dolls of ancient Egypt. We've all seen them. Shabti, which are usually mummiform figurines about 5 to 30 centimeters in length, are found in various tombs of ancient Egypt. These figurines are usually made of blue or green glaze, although some have also been found in stone. In addition, shabti made of wood, clay, metal, and glass have been found. Although there is no agreement on the meaning of the name Shabti, one possible translation is answerer. Originally, these figurines represented their owners, as the ancient Egyptians believed that without a functional body, one could not survive in the afterlife. That is why the ancient Egyptians mummified their deceased. The mummification process was carried out to preserve the body and ensure eternal life in the afterlife. However, in case something happened to the mummified body, the Egyptians had an ingenious solution: the shabti. These small statuettes were considered to be surrogates for the deceased, and were believed to be able to perform the necessary work and tasks in the afterlife in place of the deceased. This ensured that the deceased could enjoy a carefree afterlife. Because of the importance of this intimate relationship between the deceased and the shabti, a person was usually only buried with one or two of these objects. But over time, these figurines became more like servants for the afterlife and began to be made with tools to serve their master. They were believed to answer their master's call to work in the afterlife. In this period, a person could be buried with hundreds of shabti. Number 1. Ancient Egyptian mummy who was pregnant. Discovered by a team of Polish scientists in the year 2015, this embalmed pregnant mummy is a unique and exceptional find. The project, which was initiated with the aim of examining artifacts preserved in the National Museum in Warsaw, used state-of-the-art technology and surprisingly revealed unexpected information. It was previously believed that this mummy belonged to a male priest, but the researchers discovered something completely different. What they found was the body of a woman who possibly had a high status in society and was also in the last stages of her pregnancy. This discovery sheds new light on the history and burial practices of the time. She was most likely in her 20s to 30s and died in the 1st century BC. Based on studies of the circumference of the fetal head, scientists have concluded that the fetus was between 26 and 30 weeks gestation at the time of the mother's death. This discovery raises many questions and generates intrigue as to why the fetus was not removed from the uterus. The relationship between mother and fetus in this historical context and the possible medical and cultural implications are issues that merit further analysis. It is unclear why it was not removed and cleaned. Normally, they would have embalmed the fetuses separately. Perhaps spiritual beliefs about the afterlife or the physical difficulty in removing it played a role. Thanks for watching this video. See you in the next one.